substitute shall be considered base text for purpose of further amendment. I recognize myself for 5 minutes on this amendment. In the 118th Congress, the Committee on Homeland Security has held multiple hearings to examine the threat of transnational repression in the United States, which has grown significantly in the last few years. The committee has heard testimony from victims of transnational repression, including but not limited to Mr. Masih Alinejad, Inez Cantor-Freedom, and Dr. Bob Fu, all of whom have been egregiously targeted on U.S. soil for criticizing authoritarian regimes. Transnational repression is the act of a foreign government or an individual acting on behalf of that foreign government, targeting an individual or a community in another country and using violence, assassinations, the threat of violence, digital threats, family intimidation, smear campaigns, or the manipulation of legal processes to harass and intimidate individuals that are critical of the nation acting as the aggressor. The Chinese Communist Party, the Iranian regime, and other malign entities have reached beyond their borders to silence their citizens and former citizens and Americans who defend human rights and advocate for free speech. These hostile acts are a direct challenge to our nation's sovereignty and the rule of law. It is crucial that the Department of Homeland Security take steps to recognize, assess, and help address this threat, thereby reducing risk to the people of the United States. One of the bills we are marking up today, H.R. 7443, is an important measure that would authorize a dedicated transnational repression task force within DHS to analyze and monitor transnational repression and related terrorism threats, and DHS to take action to prevent this repression. The head of the task force will be appointed by the Director of Homeland Security Investigations, as HSI already works closely with federal and other partners to investigate allegations of transnational repression. I want to thank Representative D'Esposito for his attention to this matter and commend his work on legislation to implement an important public service awareness campaign to educate the public on the issue of transnational repression threats and the resources that are available to victims. I think it's especially critical now given the operation of an illegal overseas police station of the Chinese Communist Party within New York City. According to the Justice Department, the CCP, through its repressive security apparatus, established a secret physical presence in New York City to monitor and intimidate dissidents and those critical of its government. And the CCP's actions go far beyond the bounds of acceptable nation-state conduct. Just last July, Representative D'Esposito and myself visited and met with the heads of NYPD's Intelligence and Counterterrorism Division to discuss a myriad of security issues, including transnational repression and NYPD's good work related to the Chinese government and the police stations in Manhattan. It is paramount that we decisively defend the freedoms of all those living in our country from the threat of authoritarian repression. I'm also proud to support Ranking Member Magaziner's measure today, H.R. 7439, to require the Secretary of Homeland Security to prioritize strengthening of state and local law enforcement capabilities to counter transnational repression and related terrorism threats. All three of these bills passed out of the Subcommittee on Counterterrorism, Law Enforcement, and Intelligence on February 29th, 2024. Since then, we have made some very minor adjustments to the bill text to improve the practicality and implementation of these measures. I thank all my colleagues, I thank the staff on both the majority and the minority side for moving these important pieces of legislation. Collectively, these measures reflect a bipartisan commitment to safeguarding American values of free speech and human rights in the face of foreign malign influence. And the chair yields back. Does anyone else wish to speak?